The first time I saw two massive contractor trucks parked inside my garage, not in the driveway but inside my garage, I honestly thought I was dreaming. I stood there, still half in pajamas, staring at tire tracks across my clean concrete floor, speechless. My own classic Buick was pushed off to the side, like it had been evicted from its own home. It made no sense. That garage was locked. I never gave anyone the code. And yet, here were two vehicles I'd never seen before, parked inside like this was a public parking structure. Then I heard the heels. That sharp click-clack of expensive sandals against pavement. And there she was, walking up my driveway with her designer sunglasses, clipboard in hand, and a smug little smirk that told me everything I needed to know. "Good morning," she said like she was bringing muffins. My voice cracked. "Why, are there trucks in my garage?" "Oh," she waved it off like she was explaining where the salt shaker had gone. "They're doing some landscaping work behind my house. I told them they could use your garage this week. Keeps the street clear." "You told them they could use my garage?" She blinked like I was the crazy one. "Well, you live in the preserve at Maple Glen, don't you? That means your property falls under the community agreement. Shared resources and all that." I took a breath. "I'm not in the HOA. Karen gave a light chuckle. "Well, you live here. You benefit from our work. It's only fair that you contribute." I looked back at the open garage. The trucks. The muddy footprints. My displaced Buick. My stomach turned. "That's not how property rights work," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Selfishness like this is exactly what ruins communities." That was the moment I knew, this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was someone who believed that if she said it loud enough, it became law. And worse, she had no idea she just picked a fight with the wrong neighbor. Before we get deeper into this absolutely bonkers story, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you've ever had to deal with a nosy neighbor, an out-of-control HOA, or just someone who thinks your home is theirs, you're in the right place. We share stories like this every day. So please take a second to hit that thumbs up like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. Let's dive back in. I had only lived in the preserve at Maple Glen for about 5 months. It was quiet. Big trees. Good sidewalks. My little 2-story brick house at the end of Hemlock Lane had been my dream. No mortgage, no kids, just me and my restoration projects. Most importantly, my property was outside the HOA lines. My realtor even highlighted it during closing. No dues. No restrictions. You're your own boss here. Perfect. For those first few months, life was peaceful. I worked from home, kept to myself, waved politely when neighbors walked their dogs. Most weekends I'd be in the garage, slowly restoring my '72 Buick Skylark. Life was simple, clean, mine. Then Karen arrived. I'd never seen her before. But suddenly she was everywhere. Pacing the block with a clipboard. Organizing trash bin compliance checks. Holding impromptu meetings at the end of driveways. She drove a white Lexus and had that haircut you know I'm talking about. Eventually I asked someone who she was. "Oh, that's Karen Eddings," a neighbor whispered. "President of the HOA. Technically, she doesn't live here anymore, but she still runs everything." "But I thought we weren't," I started. "Yeah," they shrugged. "She doesn't care." So I ignored her. Until that morning when I stepped out for coffee and saw those trucks. Not parked out front. Not on my driveway. Inside. I didn't even go back inside to change. I marched straight to the garage, past the tire marks, and checked the keypad. Still locked. Still armed. Still my code. That's when I heard her. Clipboards and condescension. "Oh good, you saw them," she said like she was doing me a favor. I tried to keep my voice level. "Karen, who told them they could park here?" She smiled. "I did. You're part of the community. We're doing a big regrading project. The trucks needed protection from the rain. It's just for a few days." I stared. "This is private property. I'm not under HOA jurisdiction." She didn't even blink. "That's what you think. But this street is maintained by the HOA. You benefit from our services. So yes, you are." I stood frozen. My own car shoved to the side. Someone else's trucks taking up my garage. And Karen, arms folded like she just told me the sky was blue. I told her they needed to be gone by sundown. She scoffed. "Call the police if you want. They'll just refer you back to the HOA. We're within our rights." That was the moment I stopped trying to be polite. I walked back inside, pulled out my deed, highlighted the section that clearly excluded my address from the HOA zone, and returned outside. Karen was now in her car, windows half down, barking orders over Bluetooth. I knocked. She gave me the look you give someone selling vacuum cleaners door to door. Rolled the window an extra inch. This document proves you have no authority over my home, I said, holding it out. She didn't read it. She just said, I don't care what your little papers say. Then she added something that made my jaw drop. If those tools get stolen because you forced them out, you'll be liable. It's on your property now. I laughed. Are you threatening me with liability for something you illegally orchestrated? She shrugged. I'm warning you. And then she drove off. That night I didn't sleep. My mind was racing. She knew my garage code. Or had guessed it. Or someone gave it to her. She let strangers in without permission. She moved my car. Was she watching my house? Listening? Had she hacked something? At 3 a.m. I was in the garage staring at the oil streaks those trucks left. That's when the rage set in. Not loud rage. Not throwing things rage. Cold, focused, strategic rage. The kind that builds plans. The kind that makes lists. That night I reset every digital lock. Ordered 3 new cameras. Set up 2-factor authentication across every home system. And made a decision. Karen had overstepped. And I wasn't going to just push back. I was going to make sure she never touched my life, or my property, again. By morning the trucks were still there. I stood in my robe, sipping coffee, watching through the front window like I was waiting for a storm to pass. And in a way I was. Karen's little empire had officially crossed my threshold, and if I'd learned anything from that night it was this. When someone thinks they own you, no, just sounds like a challenge. At 9:43 a.m., I got a knock at the door. Not a gentle neighborly tap, it was the kind of knock that says, I'm not going away. I checked the video feed. Karen. And this time she wasn't alone. 2 guys in muddy work boots and high-vis vests stood next to her. They looked more confused than aggressive, like they'd rather be anywhere else. Karen was holding her clipboard like a sword. I didn't open the door. I hit the intercom. Yes. You've locked the garage, Karen barked. That's correct. My contractors need access. They're not my contractors. And that's not their garage. One of the workers shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, he whispered to her. Are you sure this is? Karen cut him off with a hand wave. We had an understanding. No, I said. You had a delusion. She puffed up. You're making this difficult. My garage is full of HOA inventory and seasonal decorations. Yours was available. You're being selfish. I'm being legal, I said. If anyone enters my garage again, I'll press charges. She stared at the camera. Her face didn't move, but her eyes flickered. She was calculating something. Then she turned to the workers and muttered, just get what you can from the truck beds. They shuffled awkwardly and started hauling tools off the driveway. Karen didn't say another word. She stormed off, heels clacking like a metronome of entitlement. I stood there for a while after she left, just listening to the silence. But I knew it wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to back down. She was the type to escalate. And sure enough, the very next day I got a letter. No stamp. No postmark. Just a white envelope shoved under my doormat with big red marker on the front. HOA violation. Immediate attention required. I opened it. Inside was a printed notice, complete with a fake logo that said, Wisteria Glen Community Association. My neighborhood wasn't even called Wisteria Glen. The letter accused me of blocking community contractors, illegally modifying access structures, aka my locked garage, endangering workers, and interfering with beautification protocols. Then came the kicker. A $500 fine. Per day. I actually laughed. But that laugh turned to rage about halfway through the second paragraph. Because that piece of paper wasn't just a joke. It was a weapon. A lie dressed up in legal fonts and official formatting, meant to scare me into giving up my rights. Karen had crossed from delusional into dangerous. So I did what I do best. I documented everything. I took photos of the letter, the envelope, the fake logo, even the creases from where she'd folded it. I opened my laptop and wrote an email to my friend Marcus, a civil attorney I'd met through a classic car forum, and attached every image with a short message. Got a live one. This woman thinks she's Congress. Marcus replied in under 5 minutes. She just committed civil fraud and impersonation of legal authority. You need to report this ASAP. I filed a report the next morning at the local station. Brought my printed deed, the violation letter, my security cam footage, and screenshots of Karen handing out papers. The officer didn't even blink. We get these types, he said. People who confuse influence with authority. You've got your evidence. Let's get it documented. 20 minutes later, I had an official police report, a case number, and a direct line to a supervisor. Karen wanted a game? I had just flipped the board. That night I drafted my own letter. Cease and desist. 2 pages. Simple. Precise. Full of citations. I attached my deed, again highlighted. The fake HOA letter. A printout of my home security upgrades. A copy of the police report. I printed 3 copies. 1 for Karen. 2. 1 for the police. 3. 1 for my lawyer. Then, for good measure, I posted a 4th one on the community bulletin board near the mailboxes with a red title. Notice: false HOA claims will be prosecuted. The next 48 hours were oddly quiet. No trucks. No Karen. No passive-aggressive flyers. But I knew that silence wasn't peace. It was pressure. Building. And I was right. Because Karen's next move would take things from suburban drama to straight-up public spectacle. It started with voices. Muffled at first, then louder. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard the hum of conversation outside. Too many voices to be a casual chat, too organized to be a coincidence. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. There they were. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk in front of my house. Maybe 12 people at first. Then a few more trickled in. Some neighbors I recognized, others I didn't. But right at the center of it all stood Karen Eddings, clipboard in hand, posture stiff, blouse ironed to perfection. She looked like she was leading a corporate retreat. And then I saw the flyers. She was handing them out like coupons for lawn care. Printed on that same fake, Wisteria Glen HOA letterhead. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught enough phrases to know what she was saying. Certain residents are putting the safety of our contractors at risk. Obstructive behavior that endangers the neighborhood. Refusal to cooperate with community beautification efforts. Unlawful locking of shared access structures. Unbelievable. She was talking about me. Without saying my name, of course. That would have been slander. Karen knew just enough to keep her language slippery, like a politician avoiding perjury. But everyone there knew who she met. I opened the door. Just slightly. Enough to hear her clearer. And when one homeowner refuses to participate in collective responsibility, she was saying, we all suffer. This is our community. And the actions of one individual should not jeopardize our progress. She was gesturing to my house. I was done. I walked back inside, grabbed the thick manila folder I'd prepared for exactly this moment and stepped out. The air went still when I emerged. Conversations paused. Karen's eyes flicked toward me, clipboard clenched tighter. I stopped at the edge of my lawn. Evening, I said. Mind if I say a few words? Karen opened her mouth, probably to interrupt, but I didn't give her the chance. I live here, I said clearly, looking around at the faces in the crowd. Right here. 49 Hemlock Lane. And I want to clarify a few things before anyone signs something they might regret. A few people shifted uncomfortably. One woman lowered her pen. I held up the deed, printed and laminated. This document, I said, is my property deed. It clearly states that my house is not and has never been under the jurisdiction of any HOA. I do not pay dues. I did not sign an agreement. I owe nothing to the preserve at Maple Glen or whatever alternate HOA Karen has decided to impersonate this week. Karen scoffed but didn't interrupt. 2 weeks ago, I continued, my garage was entered without my permission. Contractor vehicles were parked inside. My classic car was moved. None of this was authorized by me. I was told by Karen that my garage was a shared resource. There were gasps. Then came a fabricated violation notice, complete with a fake logo, fake fines, and bogus claims. That notice was delivered by hand. No postmark, no legal weight, and designed purely to intimidate me. I flipped to the next page in my folder. This is the police report I filed. Dated, signed, and filed with Officer Briggs at the 14th Street Station. Impersonating an HOA, distributing fraudulent notices, and threatening fines for made-up infractions. These are crimes. Not just bad behavior. Crimes. I looked straight at Karen. You've lied. You've trespassed. You've threatened me. And now you're trying to manipulate the entire neighborhood. Her face flushed. This isn't the time for legal arguments, she snapped. This is a community discussion. No, I said calmly. It's a cover-up. I turned back to the crowd. If you sign that petition she's passing around, you're giving her ammunition to keep harassing people. Today it's me. Tomorrow it might be you. If she doesn't like your mailbox color or the height of your flowers, you could be next. Silence. Then one voice, clear, steady, from the back. Karen, is this true? A man stepped forward. Jogger guy. Always had earbuds in. Never talked much. But now he looked dead serious. Karen froze. She tried to laugh. Oh, come on, Mike. This isn't a courtroom. That's not an answer. She looked around. People weren't meeting her eyes anymore. Some were frowning. A few began folding up the flyers. One woman, holding a clipboard, quietly tore the top sheet in half. Wait, Karen said, stepping forward. Don't let him twist this. No one's twisting anything, a woman said firmly. You said he was in the HOA. He's not. You said he endangered workers. He locked his own garage. You lied. I was protecting the neighborhood. Karen shouted louder than she intended. Wrong move. The volume broke the last thread of control she had. People backed away. A neighbor near the front handed back his flyer, face blank. Another dropped hers in the recycling bin by the curb. Karen stood there, breathing heavily, her clipboard now lowered to her side like a weapon she no longer had the strength to lift. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. Just like that. No apology. No explanation. Just the sound of retreating sandals on sidewalk. The crowd slowly dispersed. Some lingered to talk to me. One woman brought cookies the next day. Another guy offered to help repaint the garage floor where the trucks had left oil stains. It was a small thing. But it meant the tide had turned. Karen wasn't just losing control. She had lost the room. But I knew her. This wasn't the end. She wouldn't let that humiliation stand. And I was right, because the next time she came for me, she didn't use flyers. She used the government. Exactly 4 days after Karen's sidewalk showdown, my morning coffee routine got interrupted by a knock at the door. Not Karen's impatient banging, this was measured, professional. Official. I glanced at my doorbell camera app and felt my heart drop. 2 uniformed city inspectors stood on my porch, clipboards at the ready, eyes scanning my front yard like it held a dark secret. I took a deep breath, put my coffee down, and opened the door. Good morning, the taller inspector said. I'm Inspector Harris, and this is my colleague Inspector Reyes. We're here due to complaints regarding zoning violations and unauthorized structural modifications. Complaints? Plural. It didn't take a genius to figure out who'd filed them. I nodded slowly. What kind of violations are we talking about? Harris flipped through his paperwork. Illegal security installations, unauthorized locking mechanisms, commercial vehicles stored improperly, basically, multiple breaches of local zoning ordinances. I exhaled slowly, frustration bubbling. Let me guess, anonymous? He hesitated, glancing at Reyes. We can't disclose that, but let's say we received multiple detailed reports about your property. Of course you did, I said dryly. Come on in. Let's clear this up. As we moved around my property, I calmly walked them through everything Karen had accused me of. I pointed out my exterior cameras, motion lights, and garage locks, explaining carefully and slowly so they understood exactly why each was legal, standard, and documented. Here are the receipts, I said, handing over paperwork I'd printed out the night before. These installations were made for home security. There's no structural modification, nothing requiring permits. As for the trucks, they were placed in my garage without my permission. I filed a police report for trespassing. Harris glanced at the documentation, nodding slowly. Reyes scribbled notes, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Then came the plot twist I hadn't anticipated. You said someone gained access to your garage without your consent, Harris asked carefully, flipping back through notes. Any idea how they obtained your garage entry code? No idea, I admitted. I changed it immediately afterward. He exchanged another quiet look with Reyes, then spoke slowly. We had a similar issue on another property in your area. Same method. Same type of complaints. I felt a chill. Wait, are you saying this isn't Karen's first time? Harris paused, considering. Officially, I can't confirm who reported you. Unofficially, he glanced around cautiously, lowering his voice, she's a known figure down at City Hall. You're not the first homeowner she's targeted. She's weaponized code enforcement before. Always anonymous tips, always detailed enough to trigger mandatory inspections. I stared at him. This wasn't just entitlement, this was calculated harassment. A serial abuser of local government systems. Karen had turned bureaucracy itself into her personal weapon. I let the inspectors finish their check. They documented everything, took photos, and finally turned back to me. You're completely clear, Harris said finally. No violations found. I thanked them, but as they left, Reyes handed me a card. If this happens again, please call me directly. I watched them drive away, feeling something shift. This was bigger than neighborhood drama. Karen wasn't just dangerous, she was systematic. She had perfected this twisted art form of harassment, carefully using the city itself to silence and control anyone who dared cross her imaginary boundaries. If someone challenged her, questioned her authority, or just refused to play along with her absurd demands, she'd use anonymous complaints, false accusations, and even city inspections as her personal army. The inspector's revelation left me pacing my living room floor, restless with anger. This wasn't just petty entitlement, this was abuse, manipulation at a disturbing scale. How many others had suffered silently, quietly giving in to avoid confrontation? How many neighbors had Karen intimidated into silence or forced out of their homes entirely? I couldn't let it stand. That evening, I sat down at my computer and started documenting every interaction, every false complaint, every confrontation. I emailed Inspector Reyes copies of my security footage, the fake HOA letters, and the cease and desist notice I'd sent Karen earlier. Within an hour he responded. Got your files. This confirms a lot. We'll look into this further. Keep documenting everything. And so I did. But while I prepared my defense, Karen was gearing up for another offensive. 2 days later, I saw a white Lexus slowly circle my block twice. Karen behind the wheel, sunglasses masking her expression, but the message clear. She wasn't backing down. She was studying me. Waiting. Plotting her next move. The paranoia crept deeper into my everyday life. Each time I left the house, I scanned for her car. Every time I returned home, I checked my security feed. It felt like I was under siege, but now I knew exactly how far she would go. Then came another knock, this one softer, hesitant. It was early evening and the sun had nearly set. I checked my camera feed again, wary. Standing on my porch was a familiar face. Tom Everett, a retired schoolteacher who lived 2 doors down. Quiet guy, friendly, kept to himself mostly. I opened the door slowly. Hey Tom. Everything all right? He nodded, shifting nervously. Listen, about Karen, you're not alone. I paused. What do you mean? Tom sighed, looking down at his hands. She did it to me too. Complaints, inspectors, fines I didn't deserve. She made my life miserable until I gave in and joined her HOA. I've seen her do it before. But you're the first person who stood up to her. I respect that. I invited him inside. Tom told me everything. About how Karen systematically intimidated him and other neighbors, creating fake fines, using her imagined authority to frighten people into submission. He gave names, dates, specifics. He even had saved some of her threatening letters. This was more than I'd imagined. There was a clear pattern. This was evidence. Would you be willing to go on record? I asked cautiously, watching Tom closely. Tom hesitated, glancing around the room like someone might be listening. Finally, he straightened and nodded firmly. Yes. Enough is enough. Tom's bravery sparked something powerful in me. If he was willing to speak out, maybe others would too. Karen had built her reign on intimidation and silence. But silence was only powerful when it stayed unbroken. Now it was time to shatter it. Over the next few days, Tom and I quietly reached out to more neighbors. We found them quickly, some cautious, some eager, but almost everyone had their own Karen story. Multiple fake fines, repeated city inspections triggered by anonymous calls, endless petty confrontations. They'd all felt isolated, powerless, afraid. But now they had hope. We gathered at Tom's house that Friday evening. 7 neighbors crowded around his small kitchen table, sharing files, emails, complaint letters, all signed with Karen's meticulous cursive, each carefully crafted threat adding another layer of proof against her. I documented everything, building a comprehensive timeline. Her tactics were clear. Isolate the target, fabricate a violation, then manipulate city officials to enforce her will. It was harassment dressed as civic duty. And now, with solid evidence and multiple witnesses, we finally had the power to dismantle her carefully built empire of intimidation. The final piece clicked into place when Marcus, my lawyer friend, called me the next day. Good news, Marcus said, voice steady and reassuring. I spoke to Inspector Reyes again. He's bringing this to the city attorney. They're officially opening an investigation into Karen for misuse of city resources, fraud, and targeted harassment. They need your documentation and witness testimonies. My heart raced. When? Immediately. Reyes wants to meet Monday morning. He said this is exactly what they needed to take real action. I quickly called Tom, who agreed to join me. We organized the rest of the neighbors, encouraging them to step forward officially. By Monday morning, I had a thick binder filled with evidence and signed witness statements from nearly a dozen residents, Each page a powerful declaration against Karen's corruption. We met Inspector Reyes at City Hall, walking in together like a united front. Reyes greeted us warmly, took the evidence carefully, and handed it straight to the city attorney's aide, who was already waiting. "It's about time," Reyes said, offering me a satisfied smile. "She's been running this scam far too long." The aide nodded seriously. "With this evidence, we'll have no trouble pressing charges. We'll handle it from here." Leaving City Hall, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Finally, the wheels of justice were turning. Karen's carefully constructed facade was beginning to crumble, and it was about to come crashing down around her. But just as we reached the parking lot, Tom froze, staring at something behind me. I turned slowly, already knowing exactly who I'd see. Karen stood leaning against her white Lexus, sunglasses pushed up into her blonde hair. Her clipboard was nowhere to be seen, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked genuinely nervous. "You think you've won?" she called out, voice shaking slightly though still defiant. "No, Karen," I replied calmly, staring right back at her. "I know we have." Her eyes narrowed, then flicked between us and the City Hall entrance behind us. Without another word, she turned sharply, climbed into her car, and sped away. I knew this wasn't the end, not yet. Karen wasn't the type to give up easily. But we had exposed her to the city and now she knew it. The game had changed and she was running scared. Yet something told me her next move would be the most desperate and dangerous one yet. Karen's final desperate move stunned even me. Exactly 1 week after the city cleared me of all violations, Karen circulated another petition, this time accusing me of threatening community safety and demanding immediate action from local authorities. She boldly organized a meeting, trying once more to humiliate me publicly. But this time the neighborhood was prepared. As Karen stood there, clipboard trembling slightly, my neighbors interrupted her speech one by one. They openly challenged her lies, confronting her directly about the false inspections, fabricated HOA notices, and persistent harassment. Tom Everett stepped forward, clearly and firmly stating, "Karen, you bullied me into silence, but not anymore." Karen tried to deny, to deflect, to shout them down, but no one listened. Instead, one of the HOA board members spoke up loudly and clearly, "Effective immediately, Karen Eddings is removed from all HOA positions due to abuse of power and deliberate harassment." The applause was deafening. 2 days later, I watched from my window as a police cruiser quietly parked outside Karen's house. Officers knocked politely but firmly. I couldn't hear their conversation clearly, but I didn't need to. Within moments, Karen was led out in handcuffs, her face drained of its usual arrogance, replaced by disbelief. She faced multiple charges: trespassing, harassment, impersonation of authority, and misuse of city resources. The judge didn't hesitate. Karen received significant fines, mandatory community service, and a stern warning of jail if she ever repeated her actions. 2 days later, I watched from my window as a police cruiser parked outside Karen's house. Within moments, Karen was led out in handcuffs, disbelief on her face. She faced charges of trespassing, harassment, and misuse of city resources, receiving fines and community service. Justice was served. To all the Karens still out there, your clipboard won't protect you forever. Stay respectful, or face consequences. Hit like, and subscribe if you agree all Karens should face justice.